Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 2025 Graciela Olivarez Award Banquet, hosted by the Hispanic Law Student Association here at Notre Dame Law School. My name is Eva Moreno, and I have the pleasure of serving as your president for this academic year. Tonight, we gather to celebrate not only the incredible legacy of Graciela Olivarez, the first Latina to graduate from Notre Dame Law School and a trailblazer in the fight for justice, but also to honor an outstanding jurist and leader, Judge Moreno. And I promise there's no nepotism. We are not related. We just met today. Very true. But this event would not be possible without the generosity of our sponsors. Their support continues to help us foster spaces that empower and uplift Hispanic students and legal professionals. So I would like to extend a heartfelt thank you to Chapman and Cutler, Plews, Shadley, Racker and Brown, Fragman, Snell and Wilmer, Rhodes McGee, Robeson Gray, and Jackson Walker. Your commitment to diversity and inclusion in the legal field is truly appreciated, and we are incredibly grateful for your partnership. Soon, we'll be having dinner and move into our program for the evening. We will begin by the presentation of the Graciela Olivarez Award to Judge Moreno, and Judge Moreno will then be giving a few remarks, following by participating in a fireside chat with our HLSA Vice President, Catherine Zeta. We'll then conclude with the presentation of student awards and recognition of our 3L members. An event like this does not come together without the dedication and hard work of many individuals. I would like to extend a huge thank you to everyone who played a role in making tonight possible. From our HLSA Executive Board to volunteers and faculty and staff who have supported us every step of the way. I would like to give a special thank you to Max Gaston, Tonya Robertson, Denise Wagner, Tammy Raster, Ann Kiley, and Cara Brooks. Your efforts mean the world to us, and this event would not have been possible without your help. And lastly, but certainly not least, thank you to Judge Moreno for graciously accepting our invitation for tonight. And before we begin our meal, I would like to invite members from Jackson Walker to share a few words.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having us. I'm Natalie Kosanar. I'm a corporate attorney at Jackson Walker in our Dallas office.
I'm Chris Moika. I'm a litigation partner in the Austin office.
Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate everything that the Hispanic Law Student Association is doing and has done, and we're happy to be here.
Yeah, on behalf of the firm, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to support you. We look forward to supporting you in the Canadian future. Thank you, Dean. Thank you also.
Now I would like to invite Dean Cole to offer a blessing over the food we're about to eat.
Thank you so much, Ava. It's such an honor to be here and to fellowship with you all here on this very special evening, especially to honor my very dear friend, Judge Fred Moreno. So please, if you'll join me in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Lord God, our Father in heaven, King and Master of the universe, our rock and our salvation, hallowed be thy name. Lord, we thank you for this gathering, the fellowship that we share together here tonight. And Lord, we ask that you bless this food that we're about to receive. We ask that you bless especially those who prepared it and serve it. And also we ask that you bless and never let us forget those who go without tonight. And we ask all of this in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention for just a quick moment. Before we take a short intermission, we'd like to take a moment to hear from one of our valued sponsors from Rhodes McGee.
Hi everyone, I'm Jackie Gordon. I'm an attorney and chair of the recruiting committee at Rhodes McGee. We're a full-service law firm out in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We're really honored to be here today and to be a sponsor. We really enjoyed getting to talk to everyone and to be part of such an important organization. I know when I was a law student how much events like this and organizations like this meant to me. So I don't want to take everyone's time up too much, but thank you for letting us have a few moments to speak, and thank you everyone for coming tonight.
At this time, we're going to take a brief intermission for about 10 minutes, and we'll resume shortly. So please make your way back to your seats in a few minutes, and we'll begin it with our programming. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope that you all have enjoyed dinner. We'll now be moving into the presentation portion of the evening, and I will be presenting the Graciela Olivarez Award to Judge Moreno. Following the presentation, he will give some brief remarks, following by a sit-down with our Vice President, Catherine Zeta, for a fireside chat. For a little history on Graciela Olivarez, in 1970, Notre Dame conferred a law degree onto its first female law student, Graciela Olivarez, or Grace. Grace was a first-generation Mexican-American who grew up in Arizona. While she never received a high school or college degree, she sporadically enrolled in various types of schooling, took on different jobs to support her family, and volunteered for many civil rights causes. It was while doing work for the Civil Rights Commission that Grace met Father Theodore Hesburgh. And later, while she was serving as a state director for the Office of Economic Opportunity, she vented frustration to Father Hesburgh over feeling limited in her ability to work for others. In response, Father Hesburgh would say that he believed she was limited by a lack of education. He also acknowledged to Grace that one of the major problems of the Mexican-American community was the shortage of lawyers. As a response to both concerns, Father Hesburgh offered Grace automatic admission to Notre Dame Law School. Grace would later say that the only reason she accepted this invitation was because she knew it was her only way to help her on her mission to help the impoverished. After obtaining her JD, Grace would continue in her servant leadership by acting in various public interest directional capacities, including serving as the chair of the Mexican American Legal Defense and Educational Fund, as one of the first 2 women on the board in 1977. Grace became the highest-ranking Hispanic woman in the Carter administration when President Jimmy Carter appointed her as the Director of Community Services Administration. She had caught President Carter's attention through her efforts to decrease poverty. The Graciela Olivarez Award is an annual award given by HLSA. This award recognizes an astounding Hispanic lawyer or judge who best exemplifies the principles and ideals of Grace, including commitment to community service, demonstration of the highest ethical and moral standards, and a dedication to justice. And just like Grace, we look for someone who strives to serve a higher purpose by serving others. And it is only fitting that this year we recognize a jurist whose career and character embody those very ideals, Judge Moreno. I would now like to invite Dean Cole to come say a few words about Judge Moreno.
Thank you very much, Ava. I want to start by telling you a little bit about my unusual connection to Graciela Olivarez. When I was accepted to law school, I had never met a lawyer before. I was a first-generation student, and I was terrified. And I received a call one night, I'll never forget, and it was from a lawyer in Chicago by the name of Ruben Castillo. And Ruben was, at the time, the president of MALDEF, the Mexican American Legal Defense Fund. He called me to invite me to come to Northwestern Law School in the end of July for 2 weeks, where he would gather me with 7 other students, or 8 of us total, who he knew were first-generation students who had never met a lawyer before. And over those 2 weeks, he basically gave us an introduction to law school. He showed us what legal writing was, what legal reasoning involved. He showed us how to read a case. He showed us how to brief a case. He showed us basically the things that we needed to learn in order to be prepared for the first day of law school. And I would not be standing here before you today if it wasn't for my mentor, Ruben Castillo, who went on to become Judge Castillo of the Northern District of Illinois. But the connection is that Ruben Castillo, before he was the president of MALDEF, his mentor was Graciela Olivarez when she was the president of MALDEF. And so I feel a direct connection to her, because if it wasn't for her, there would have been no Ruben Castillo. And if there was no Ruben Castillo, there would be no Dean Cole. So I'm really grateful to her for what she did to shape a lawyer who, just like me, was a first-generation lawyer. And he passed that on to me, and I'm really grateful. And so I'm really honored that we get to honor her by continuing her memory, and also to honor someone like my friend, Judge Fred Moreno. Judge Moreno is a 1974 graduate of the University of Notre Dame, but as he just mentioned, he couldn't get into Notre Dame Law School, so he went to the University of Miami, which wasn't bad, but from there he went on to sit on the Dade County Court in 1986, and then in 1990, President H.W. Bush appointed him to the United States District Court for the Southern District of Florida. And Judge Moreno has been a dedicated member of the Notre Dame Law Advisory Council, and has been a mentor to our students for years, and also a good friend to the law school. And so I'd like to give you Judge Fred Moreno as the recipient of the Graciela Olivarez Award for 2025. Judge Moreno.
Want me to get, oh my goodness, wow. Yeah, of course. We'll see if this gets through TSA at the airport. I better take my credentials with me. Rather than having prepare remarks, what I thought I would, first of all, I want to thank you. I saw the list of prior recipients of this award, and of course with the story of Graciela Olivarez, I feel like, you know, when you get that test to see if you can tell what doesn't fit, you know, what that is. And somehow I feel like I don't fit in that category. I didn't make it, but I'll be quick at accepting it, just in case you change your mind. But I thought I would tell you, what do you tell? There's so many young students here, right? What can you? There's some people who are still young, but no longer students. And they could probably say better things than I can about how to deal with two things. One is diversity, and the other is failure. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that, but I know we're going to have a fireside chat, and sometimes that's better than giving a speech. Dealing with diversity, sometimes that has become a little controversial nowadays. And I was thinking, rather than preparing some remarks, to think about how diverse we are. You got to be proud of your ethnic background. I think that's important. And at the same time, realize how diverse Hispanics are. Think about it, right? It's easy to figure out we're not monolithic at all. And I'm not talking about just politically, just from our background. Think you could have African roots like the Caribbeans, Venezuelans, Cubans, Puerto Ricans. You could have indigenous roots because of a lot of Mexicans and Guatemalans, Central Americans, people from Bolivia and Peru. But you could be blonde and white from northern Spain or Argentina. And yet there's something that binds them, that comes from Spain. They gave us, for most of us, if we kept it, our faith, which can get nourished in Notre Dame, and later on, the language, if we haven't forgotten it, and hopefully it's never too late to pick it up when you have kids. It's just wonderful. Let me tell you, you do that with the children that you'll have, the grandchildren, because it's important in this day and age. I mean, not knowing another language is like not knowing the computer. Of course, you all can do your little computer and your phones and all of that. A language, so it's never too late. That's important. But today it seems a little controversial, and I thought about my job as a trial judge, because I tried, and some of my law clerks who are here know I counted the number of trials. Federal judges make the same amount of money, so how do you compete? You got to compete somehow. In a law firm, who brings in more cases, who gets what percentage, all of that. But it's about trials, and I thought of the 700. I'm now on 89. Tried some more since some of you left. And I've agreed with all but 4 cases with a verdict. And I'm thinking about how diverse jurors are. And they have to agree on things unanimously. I mean, you don't even get that in your family Thanksgiving dinners today. And that's flesh and blood. And yet, you do get it in trial. By the way, one of the cases, they bribed some jurors. It's a famous case, Faco Magluta. So I don't count that one. That one was not. That one was too diverse. And you can watch it on Netflix, 8 episodes. I used to have black hair, if you want to take it. So put that one aside. They really do a good job. Poor people, rich people. I don't know whether Judge Vasquez, who's been a judge almost as long as she was, as a teenager, I think she was appointed. And that people can agree if we have a set of rules and you put it in the confine. People who are very different. Miami is different. You could have blacks and Cubans and Hispanics who don't like Cubans, and old people and rich people and working people. And they agree when you set things up for them. And so we shouldn't be afraid of diversity. Regarding failure, I know the dean said I didn't get into Notre Dame Law School. Well, he didn't get into Notre Dame undergraduate, so we're kind of okay. And he did fine, right? And then I was thinking, how do we react to this, to the diversity? And I think it's all in the context. And instead of, we should be proud. And let me tell you, I'm very proud of my Hispanic roots, my Spanish, and it's very important. But the best thing to do as a young lawyer is just to be good at what you do. Now, it's a little harder if you're Hispanic because, okay, Moreno, we're not related, but people know, oh, you're Hispanic, right? Gonzalez, that's easy. But, sometimes women get married and they take the husband's name and they marry an Irish guy, right? O'Neill or O'Brien or something like that. So people may not know they're Hispanic. But the best thing to do is just to do a great job and to handle it like our own football coach. Think about it. Remember when he beat Penn State, right? And we're in the national championship. And the NBC reporter, see, the media loves to create, they're important because they report things. But it's like, well, I shouldn't say this, but your mother-in-law coming to the house, right? She's never going to say how clean the house is. She's going to say, you got some dust, Some of the older people know the Romanos, right? Okay, Raymond, it's just not going to happen, right? So they have to create this issue that is not necessary because we know that jurors can do it. And you have to just be the best. So you want to be on law review and you didn't get into law review, go to another journal. And if it's a specific journal, maybe you love the patent or trademark or international law, and that'll open up a door in a law firm instead of the nerdy law review guy who just knows how to blue book. We shouldn't even use blue book anymore. No, think about it. The reason for blue book was, I know that, oh my God, the appellate judges would say, you got to do the blue book. That's so you can find things. Well, today, yeah, you can find things. You find everything. Anyway, so And so you don't have to do that, but you have to just be good. And the coach, what did Coach Freeman say? Said, this is a team effort. I'm not the black coach. We're a team. And he is a great coach. Our dean doesn't want to be the best black law school dean in America. He is what he is already, the best law school dean in America. And then, but people obviously know he's African American. Can't hide that. And I think that's how you deal with diversity. It becomes controversial because some people feel excluded when you only include that. So I think that's what we got to work on, to bring us together. The way I see people every day in jury trials, I think we're missing the boat with that. As far as failure, you know, I know some people I was telling, they said, tell us about Rudy. You know, there's a thing of failure and success and those stories. Failure, I got nominated to the Court of Appeals and I didn't come out of committee. And Rudy called me from the White House, say, hey, what is that you wanted, that you got? And how you deal with failure. Don't let that get you down because there's something else. Another door is open. And there's so many stories about that. So I don't have prepared remarks. I don't even know it should be videotaped, but that's what it is. And I'm wired and everything. I feel like one of those mobster informants, except I'm not as scared as they are because nothing bad is going to happen. But we're going to do it through question and answers. That's what's in vogue without the fireside, just the two chairs. And we'll do it. We have them prepared ahead of time. Hasn't been read before. And then I think if you have any questions, I'll answer them. I did all right in my first Senate hearing. I never got another one. So, okay? But that's it. Do I sit on the left or the right? I'm usually on the right, but I don't know. I should be on the left to even things out. Wherever they want.
Whichever one you want.
You tell me.
No, you pick.
No. On the left. See, they're pushing me to the left, which is a good thing. Okay. Ooh, wow.
They're comfy, huh?
I could fall asleep here. I'm glad I only had one drink.
Well, first
okay.
of yes.
With flowers and everything.
I just want to say thank you so much for coming. We are so honored to have you here today. And
judges, if there's a free meal, they're always the lawyers and all that.
Well, we can provide. But I just wanted to start with some questions. You immigrated to the United States right before starting college. Can you speak on this experience and how it shaped your worldview in law school and as a lawyer?
Well, it was actually before college.
Oh.
I know you can't tell by my Hoosier accent where I grew up. You don't have to laugh so loudly, Dina. But I came, my parents were double immigrants. My father, or triple my father, he left Spain during the Spanish Civil War. A lot of people, Spain was even more divided than America is, but violently, before World War II. And my grandmother, who was a school principal in the 30s, which is very unusual for a woman in those days, very conservative. As the Spanish Civil War was getting bad, moved to France as a refugee. My father met my mother, who was French. My French grandfather didn't want her to marry a Spaniard, even though they were both Catholic. They're right next to each other. But it was an issue back then. And eventually they immigrated because of relatives to Venezuela, and all my siblings and I were born. And then he left Venezuela when Fidel Castro was trying to take over different countries, and Venezuela was a prime target because of the oil. And so I left before I was a teenager, at 12. And my father went to Ohio and met Father Hasber somehow. I don't know, because I was too little. to know the difference. But some of you may remember or may have studied the Peace Corps movement was a big thing started by President Kennedy, and it was for young idealists, college students, to go to Africa and Latin America to do things. And they were trained, I'm sure they were trained in other places, but one of the principal places was right here in Notre Dame. And that's how my father came. I actually lived for a while in Fisher Hall that they've now torn down as a teenager during the training. So that's how I started. And then I went to a public high school here in South Bend. I learned English. I did okay. And then they left, and eventually my family moved to Monterey, California. So there's no typical immigrant life. Everybody's different. I remember South Bend was full of immigrants. I worked as a janitor in Notre Dame during the summers, and everybody who helped was Polish or Hungarian. They were that was the help then. And they would tell you stories of what happened when the factories closed in South Bend and things like that. And then, of course, you had the Latin, it was from Latin America, right? And now the high school I went to, I was the only Hispanic kid. Adams had 2,000 kids. I was like a foreign exchange student. That's really how I was treated. So it was totally different. I went to a high school reunion, and they told me the school is like 30% Hispanic. So it's a tremendous change. So everybody's story is different. Everybody came from someone else. The only question is when. And, and we have to be grateful to this country that welcomes us. Sometimes not too enthusiastically, but still welcomed us.
Did you have a specific field of law that you were interested in when you went to law school? And is this the same field you ended up practicing in? And if so, how did it work out? If not, what made you change your mind?
I didn't know. I started law school. I actually went to MBA school for a semester here in Notre Dame, where I taught Spanish. I couldn't understand the Korean instructor when he would talk about statistics. And then I realized I was going to go back to Venezuela. I wasn't a citizen then, yet. And I said, this isn't for me. So I became an American. I was sworn in by Judge Grant, who's got his name on the federal courthouse here in South Bend. And and I said, you know what, I'm going to be an American. I kind of like government. That was my major. I'm going to be a lawyer. And then I realized, I went to Miami. I wanted to marry a Hispanic woman. I thought that would be a good place to find one, and it worked out. And I did meet a Cuban girl at Miami Law School who ended up being first in her class. But her father was very strict, and I told a couple of you and made me sign an affidavit that I couldn't leave Miami. And I stayed, and it worked out. And this is what I mean, how to deal with failure. It may not be the path that you want, takes you some other place, takes you to Stanford, and then you come back to where you wanted to go in the first place. So that would be what I would encourage you to do. Don't set this particular goal, because you never know. I saw that I like litigation. I could try cases. There was a program in Florida. It was the heyday of crime in Miami. So you could go to trial. I tried cases before I graduated from law school. Jury trials, felonies. It was crazy, like Miami Vice days. And but it was fun for me. And eventually, as a lawyer, after I did that, I wanted to become a judge. And the timing was good because Congress passed the money laundering statute. And as a criminal lawyer, it was a good thing to change. See, I'm telling you, and it's on film too, but what are they going to do now?
So I know that you've worked in private practice before transitioning to work as a federal defender. What prompted the change into public service?
When I graduated from law school, Bill Meadows, a great guy, he used to be the U.S. attorney appointed by Kennedy, and a wonderful man. and he had private practice, but he was towards the end of his practice, and it wasn't enough. And I said, I got to get into court. I got to try cases. I can't. I mean, I tried them as a student. I got to do it as a lawyer. And the best place to try cases is to work in one of the government offices, if that's what you want to do. U.S. attorney, state attorney, public defender, state or federal, county attorneys, whatever that, because the volume is great, the pay isn't great, but it's worth that sacrifice to get that experience, to see if you like it or not. But then, I met one of my partners, graduated with me, John Thornton, and David Rothman. They were former prosecutors, and we had a partnership, and we're still friends, long-term friends, since I became a state judge, and a couple of them became judges too.
So you worked in a variety of roles. You were in private practice, then you were a federal defender, and now you're a judge. What skills have you gained from each role, and also, which was your favorite to be in?
Oh, the favorite job is the one I got right now, a senior district judge who can turn it on and off whenever he wants. But, right, Judge Vasquez, senior judge is the best job. You don't think she's a senior judge, but but being a judge, the challenge, the law clerks who always keep, we laugh, but they work hard, and they tell you what's going on in the real world, because as you age, you may get wiser, but you don't know what's going on unless they tell you what's really going on, the next generation. And the district judge is better. I told you I got nominated to the Court of Appeals, and that's a true story, which was not in the Rudy movie, because I was his tutor, and he got in from Holy Cross Junior College into Notre Dame. I told some of you that us in Notre Dame, we kind of looked down upon him. We used to call them hokey jokers, but he got in, he got to play football and all of that. And then he sent me the screenplay for the movie, which I threw out. I said, come on, Rudy, get on with your life. I love Notre Dame too. You all can tell that. But you gotta get over this. I really meant it. And it shows you how dumb I was. And he made the movie, and he calls me from the White House when I got nominated to the Court of Appeals because one of my colleagues didn't get out of the committee. They didn't confirm him. And the governor who appointed me to state court was a Democratic governor. And but the president who appointed me, I got to be friendly with the Bushes because Jeb Bush was married to a Mexican woman, and he lived in Venezuela, etc. Miami, the best thing about Miami is how close it is to the United States, and it's just so, and so I got nominated to the Court of Appeals within a year and a half of being a district court, and you don't say no. President Bush is I think he may have been the only one, but he would call you on the phone and give you the appointment. I can tell you other stories about that, but not on film. And so I said yes, but it was getting controversial because it was an election year. This is nothing new. This was in 1992. And it was held up, and he loses the election. President Clinton wins the election, and he had his ties with Miami because the brothers of Hillary Clinton worked in Miami. I tell my law clerks, all roads lead to Miami. Hugh Rodham was a public defender in front of me in state court, and his brother, who died later, was an investigator there. So I have met Hillary, and Bill Clinton loved to play golf in Miami. And So he says, what is it, the position? But you're a federal judge. You want to be another federal judge? He was there in the White House. I mean, is America a great country or what? The kid who couldn't get in to Notre Dame and talking because the president gets to see a movie before you and I get to see it. So it's just to show you, you can't tell where, as the dean says, the Lord is going to guide you, or if you're not religious, where luck is going to drive you. You really cannot tell. So you got to have some flexibility in life. You don't get the job at the great, big law firm that pays you right out of law school more than a federal judge makes. Right, Dylan? You make more money than I do? Unbelievable. This kid is my law attorney, makes more than a federal judge. Okay, but it's their money. You don't get that, you may work in a smaller firm and you get to go to court more often. So that's how you deal with failure and diversity, in my view.
So throughout your career...
This is worse than the Senate. My goodness.
Throughout your career, you were involved in a lot of legal services and community organizations. Why has this service been so important to you, and what do you see as the most pressing legal issue facing underserved communities today?
Wow. Legal services. I think the biggest problem in America is actually education. I've always believed that. Because what I've noticed is a lot of people who have gone to public schools like I did, their kids don't go to public schools. And in a lot of communities, there are exceptions, but the public schools, since they're funded based upon where they are, guess what? The best public schools are in the rich areas, and the worst public schools are in the poor areas. That, to me, is the biggest problem, which has been exacerbated by the pandemic, because I remember in the pandemic, right, schools are closed, everything is a mess, whatever you feel. I think they were closed for too long, but I'm not going to get into that as a judge. I can't say anything controversial. But in the private schools, they have, the parents, the Catholic schools were open, the computers were on, and in the private schools that weren't Catholic, the computers were on. These kids didn't lose a beat, right? And the poor kids are already behind by several years. That's going to increase crime and opportunities. But it's not really a legal issue, but I think it's a major issue. And legal issues is how to make court, how to simplify things in court. And that you all are going to have to change that. Because I think what happens is lawyers make things more difficult than it is. And I think the reason they do is because they're not hanging around regular people enough. That's what we need. We need diversity of thought, of profession, of background, so that you know how to deal with jurors, you know how to deal with Joe Sixpack, we used to say, with people like that. Because people don't really know how to do that if they're all lawyers. They come before you and they use acronyms, and they've lived with their case for so long that I said, do you understand that the jurors, before you make an argument to the jury, make an argument maybe to your spouse who'll take everything, right? That's what the marriage vows are about. But to someone who's not a lawyer, though, and see whether they agree with you and understand what you're saying. Understand what your opponent's position is. Today, we don't want to listen to the opposing point of view. You know what? You can't be a good lawyer if you don't know what the opponent says, because that's what you gotta win. You gotta know what the offense is if you're gonna play good defense, right? And the defense has to know the offense. Someone's got to do that. And we don't know that. We got like tunnel vision. And I think that's the most important thing, I think, to understand the other point of view. I hear stories that people don't even talk to each other anymore because they vote differently. Well, look at that. That means we're 50-50. There goes the issue of the population control issue, right? If nobody talks, we're not going to have babies either. So I just think it's just crazy. You got to talk and respect the other person's opinion, because jurors can do it, you can do it as lawyers. And you can't, we're having too much acrimony. And I'm not opining on anything that happens in court or out there in the public, but take it for what it's worth. Nothing is as serious as you think it is, except the underlying things. Lack of morality, lack of faith. I know we can't say that, right? But that really is the problem. It's not just poverty. Because in the old, my long-term secretary was an African-American woman, Shirley, who didn't go to college, ran a great chambers, very religious, and picked peaches in Atlanta. It wasn't cotton, but it was peaches, but it was hard work. Had a lot of common sense, and she would tell, these lawyers don't even know what they're talking about when they're talking. They don't appreciate that. I think that's something that we have to remember, that if we just hang around people who are like ourselves, then we don't know what the other people are thinking. God, this is like a sermon. Does it count for Sunday, Dean?
I have one last question
Go
for you
ahead.
before I open it up to everybody else for questions and
You
answers.
could be a good senator,
Oh, thank you. I'll remember that. What advice do you have for young Latino lawyers, both in academic endeavors and beyond?
Do your best in everything else. Don't say, I want to be the best Latina lawyer, the best Hispanic. Don't do that. Just be the best. And they'll know it. They'll know it because you like the things, Justice Sotomayor said that she loved to dance, she loved Latin music, but that's not why she got the Supreme Court. It was because she went to good schools and did well, right? So that's what I would do. Enjoy life, maybe not as loud as us Hispanics generally do, to be polite to others, but have fun, but do the best in whatever area you like, and have fun. I really mean that. I know it's easy for someone who's got a lifetime job, a guaranteed salary. Even if I don't work, I get paid. My non-lawyer friends don't understand that. They say, you mean if you don't work, you still get paid? So why do you work? Okay? And I said, because I like it. Oh my God. Reach that goal, because if you don't like what you do, think about your waking hours. Put aside your sleeping hours, right? Because hopefully you're not working that much while you're sleeping. If you don't like what you do, now I understand. If you got a supportive family, you got to do. I don't want you to get into a fight with a senior partner in a law firm when he wants something immediately. You got to deal with people. But enjoy it. That's the only advice I would give you. And root for Notre Dame,
Always. Thank you so much. If the crowd has any questions, we're...
Look at that. All right. Oh my God. I can't fire you anymore. Dylan Yang was a law clerk of mine.
Something I want to highlight is that...
You got to stand up
sorry.
when you speak.
Something I want to highlight is that Judge Moreno has done a great job in mentoring a lot of Notre Dame alumni, and I have a quiz question for you. How many law clerks have you hired who went to Notre Dame or Notre Dame Law School?
I don't know, but we counted one time, because every time my colleagues would see law clerks, they said, okay, so when did you graduate from Notre Dame? So this year, I have 2 who didn't, and I love it. So we go around, walking around the courthouse to see whether they said, and Maya says, no, I went to Maryland, or I went to UCLA. What happened here? Because I like diversity of thought, colleges too, but there's a lot of partiality for it. And the dean has done such a great job with someone like Judge Wilson. I mean, he can hire more law clerks because he's a Court of Appeals judge. But we counted, didn't we? It was a big percentage. And then lately, a lot. Ever since I got put on the law school advisory board, I have to do that. But you know what it is? It has to do with how they train you here. A lot of the things whether you're Catholic or not Catholic, the fact that you have principles. I don't have to worry about someone doing the wrong thing. I really don't. And that, if you're a law partner, you want that. You want the truth. You want honesty. You want someone, if he messes up, because it's never she messes up. It's always he messes up. If he messes up, to acknowledge it so that we can, bring the fire extinguisher now as opposed to waiting. And Notre Dame does produce that. I'm sure there's some rotten apples someplace, but I haven't found them. That tree keeps on giving. So if it keeps on giving, I keep on taking. And I think, Dean, we're what? We're at the top of that. We're in the top something, 3 or 4. What are we?
Top 3.
Top 3, look at that. I mean, the Marcus Freeman better worry about it. Huh? We may be number 1 in that, so he's going to put pressure on him. No other questions. Look at that. They've been well fed. Yes. Look at that.
How you doing, Judge Moreno? For everyone else, my name is Eddie Soto. I'm a 2L here. Born in Caracas, grew up in South Florida, not too far from Judge Moreno's courthouse, so we share that in common. I wanted to ask you how you went about making difficult choices in your life. Do you have a kind of system of just how to approach difficult decisions and crossroads, and how you come out to your ultimate outcomes?
In law, it's really not that difficult because you usually have 2 sides. It's only difficult when you have a pro se, unrepresented person. And then you got to bend a little bit, but if you bend too much, it's also unfair to the other side that's paying for a lawyer. In criminal law, you usually have good lawyers on both sides. And in civil law, they've hired their lawyers, so, whether you get what you paid for or not, it's really none of my business. But you usually get 2 sides, you analyze it, and you make a decision. If you have the personality to make decisions, it's, which I think I do, some people are quicker at that than others. Now, in life, it's hard. When I decided to go into private practice, you take a gamble, right? But I had my wife who was making good money. Remember, she was number 1, so that made it easier. But you speak with your loved ones, If you have support, if you're a team, fine. You got to know who your partners are. Your work partners are almost as important as your life partners. People don't think so. And today, partnerships don't last as long. I know, and that's kind of sad, but if you see one that has lasted, that's a good firm. And the reputation of the firms, how do they treat people? Are they flexible? Not, don't they work hard? They work hard. If they're paying you a lot of money, it's not for you to take a vacation every time you want. I mean, that's not fair, not at that stage. But you got to talk with people, have friends, and have non-lawyer friends too. And talk with your spouse. That's what I would do.
Thank you, Judge. Do we have any more questions?
Well, it's been a pleasure and an honor. I'm really proud of you guys and of Notre Dame and your organization. And I know I'll read about you if I live long enough, and you'll be
Absolutely.
important people, okay?
Thank you, Judge.
All righty, thank you.
Before we conclude our evening, I just want to say thank you so much again to Judge Moreno for all that he's done for our university and for being such a great role model for us here today. But we also want to take a moment to recognize the outstanding contributions of our graduating 3Ls with the 3L Awards, presented by our academic chair, Michael Kaplan.
Thank you so much, Ava. Our first 3L award is our Servicio con Dedicación award, and this award honors a third-year law student in HLSA who has dedicated their time at Notre Dame Law School to exceptional leadership, teamwork, and embodiment of Notre Dame values, resulting in a significantly positive impact on the Hispanic community at Notre Dame Law School. So our first awardee today, I'll just note that she's not with us today because she was competing in a moot court competition, so she unfortunately wasn't able to join. But her name is Annie Ortega, and she is a graduating third-year law student, originally from Fleming Island, Florida. She graduated from the University of Florida with her bachelor's degree, and in 2021 with her master's degree. Before law school, she worked in the Florida Governor's Office of the General Counsel, working on judicial appointments. She spent her 1L summer working at the Court of Federal Claims in Washington, D.C., and her 2L summer working at Gunster in Jacksonville, Florida. And at Notre Dame, she serves as the executive managing editor for the Journal of Law, Ethics, and Public Policy, president of the Federalist Society, and she's an oralist on the Moot Court Board's showcase team. And after law school, Annie will have the pleasure of clerking for none other than Judge Federico Moreno and the Honorable John Curiel of the Florida Supreme Court. Annie's time at NDLS has exemplified a commitment to public service and fidelity to the mission of the law school, and we, HLSA, applaud her achievements and wish her well as she proceeds onto her legal career. So, yeah. And then,
I guess you don't have to be present to win.
indeed,
I'll remind you.
our second 3L award is honoring none other than Victoria Villanueva, who is the past president of HLSA. She's originally from the Chicagoland area, and she majored in business economics and minored in history and political science at Miami University in Ohio before her time at Notre Dame. In both of her past summers, she was a summer associate at Levenfield Pearlstein in Chicago, where she will return after graduation this spring. And in addition to her steadfast leadership of HLSA during her second year of law school, she has been actively involved in our Student Bar Association and provided welcoming mentorship to many of the students in this very room. HLSA is immensely grateful for the leadership that Victoria demonstrated during her tenure and the ways in which she has sought to forge community throughout her time at Notre Dame Law School. So if we could please give a warm round of applause to Victoria. Thank you. And I would also like to take a moment to recognize 3L Emily McLean and 3L Manuela Correa. Manuela is not here today. She wasn't able to join us, but Emily is here. And as they prepare to graduate, we want to thank them for their dedication, leadership, and the countless contributions they have made to our organization. So Emily, if you could please stand up, we have a small gift for you. Your passion and commitment have made a lasting impact on HLSA and all of us. And we're proud of you and can't wait to see you and what you accomplish in the future. So, thank you.
I wanted to thank you all so much for attending tonight's Graciela Olivarez Award Ceremony. It's been an honor to celebrate the legacy of Graciela Olivarez and to recognize the outstanding career and contributions of Judge Moreno. Judge Moreno, your dedication to justice, education, and service is an inspiration to us all, and we're grateful for the wisdom and insight you've shared with us tonight. I would also like to take a moment once again to thank our generous sponsors. Your support makes evenings like this possible and helps us continue fostering a strong and empowered community within Notre Dame Law School. And of course, a huge thank you to everyone who has worked behind the scenes to bring this evening together. Before we officially wrap up, I hope you all will join us as we continue our celebration after this, as we will be heading to the Law School Commons in the Eck Hall of Law to watch March Madness and keep the celebration going. And don't forget, we will also see you all tomorrow for lunch. But before we conclude, I would like to invite our President-elect of HLSA to give closing remarks.
Hi, everyone. I'll be honest, tengo un poquito de sueño. The tiramisu was delicious, and I'm a little sleepy. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Graciano. Everyone calls me Jenny. It is an incredible honor to stand before you tonight as the incoming president of the Hispanic Law Student Association. I want to begin by thanking Eva Moreno and Catherine Zeta and the rest of the current executive board for their leadership and devotion to HLSA, and I look forward to building upon their work. I also want to recognize and thank the incoming executive board. I know their dedication, hard work, and above all, friendship will make this an excellent year for HLSA. It is significant to give this speech tonight at the Graciela Olivarez reception. Graciela Olivarez was, as Eva said, a trailblazer, the first woman to earn a law degree at Notre Dame Law School and a lifelong advocate for the Hispanic community and the impoverished. We gather here to recognize an outstanding member of the legal community who embodies her legacy of service, integrity, and dedication to justice. And this event reminds us of the power of our community, the responsibility we have to uplift others, and the impact we can make as future lawyers. As we move forward this year, my vision for HLSA is rooted in the same principles that guided Olivarez's work: community, unity, and service. Principles that guided Olivarez's work. We live in a time when divisions, political, cultural, and even within our own communities, can feel more pronounced than ever. But HLSA will be a place of connection, support, and empowerment. My goal is to ensure that every member feels valued and connected, not just within our organization, but across the broader Notre Dame community. One of my top priorities is strengthening our bonds, not just among ourselves, but also working with other student organizations. The challenges we face as law student, first-generation professionals, advocates, and members of underrepresented communities are not faced alone and are not unique. We have allies. And most importantly, we can be allies to others. By working together, we can amplify our voices, share our experiences, and build a more inclusive and supportive campus for each and every one of us. Another priority is deepening our connection for HLSA's incredible alumni network across the country, if not the nation. Pardon me, if not the world. Those who have come before us have paved the way, and their mentorship, guidance, and example are invaluable. I want to ensure that our members have more opportunities to connect with alumni, learn from their journeys, and see the vast possibilities for all of us. And most importantly, I want us to lean in and rely on each other. Law school is demanding, and our pressures sometimes make us feel isolated. However, HLSA is more than just an organization. It's a network of people who support each other. The connections we need are already here. We must reignite the strong bonds that have always defined us. Through social events, mentorship programs, career-building opportunities, and meaningful community engagement in the South Bend area, which houses a rich and often overlooked Latino community, we'll create a HLSA that uplifts all of its members. I'm excited for what we will accomplish together in the coming year. This is our organization, and together we will strengthen it more than ever. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the conclusion of our evening, but I would be remiss if I didn't bring up one more thing. So I think a big theme that I've heard this evening is service, and it seems to carry through the legacy of us here at Notre Dame. And actually, Judge Moreno remembered when I was a law student and I met him for the first time, I wanted to be a public servant myself. A lot of our HLSA students want to do public interest work, and the HLSA organization on its own supports a lot of that work through funding those unpaid summer internships. And so if you have one of these brochures that we have for the reunion weekend, you'll see in the back of it we have QR codes for our Black Law Students Association, our Hispanic Law Students Association, and our Asian Pacific American Law Students Association. Right now, all three of those organizations are trying to raise money to send more students into public defender jobs, prosecutor jobs over the summer, jobs with NGOs to serve the public good and truly embody what it means to be a different kind of lawyer. A lot of those folks who want to do that work are in this room right now. So if you feel so moved, we would invite you to continue to support the legacy of service at Notre Dame with these current students by making a contribution. Thank you.